Good evening, and welcome everybody to our panel this evening titled Reentry Housing Solutions, Supporting Stability and Success. My name is Sean Walton. I am a civil rights attorney in the city. I do a lot of things, but I believe that is why I'm here tonight on this panel is as a civil rights attorney because I deal with in my work a lot of people who are reentering society, and I've seen their humanity. And it's an honor for me to be here tonight helping to lead this conversation about that housing stability. And with us tonight, we have some esteemed panelists, some experts in this area. First of all, we have Ohio State Representative Latina Humphrey of District 2. Please give a round of applause for Representative Humphrey. Next, we have Makisha West Pulley from the Alvis House. Please give her a round of applause. And last but certainly not least, we have Bo Chilton, CEO of Impact Community Action. Now, as we have this conversation tonight, we're going to hit on a few topics. Those topics range from the impact of the housing crisis on justice-involved individuals, additional barriers the justice-involved face during reentry, where can people go for assistance to access housing? Get some feedback there. Should I come higher? All right, I think that's better. And what can the average person do to help? And so as we talk about stable housing and why it's crucial for individuals reentering society, keep going? All right. I just want to make it clear that there are certain facts that we know about some of the issues that are people are encountering that are attempting to reenter society. People who have been previously incarcerated are 10 times more likely to experience homelessness. Studies have shown that housing is a key predictor of successful community reentry. And if housing is a protective factor that reduces recidivism, then housing is an aspect of public safety. And so we're going to get into the questions here, and I'll start first with you, Latina. We recently passed into law House Bill 50. Congratulations on that. And if you could, please tell us a bit about what House Bill 50 is and why it's important in the context of this conversation.
Yeah. Is this thing? Okay. All right. Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, as was stated, I am State Representative Latina M. Humphrey. I have the current pleasure of representing Ohio's 2nd House District, so that encompasses, for those who don't know, the entire east side of Columbus, the entire city of Whitehall, and then I have parts of Reynoldsburg, Blacklick, Canal, Winchester, and Groveport. Now, I just want to say it is a total honor to be here with you all today. But to get to the question, House Bill 50 is called the Certificate Qualification of Housing. It is mirrored basically directly after what we call the Certificate Qualification of Employment. By raise of hands, how many of you all have heard of the Certificate Qualification of Employment? Okay, so for those of you who do not know, the Certificate Qualification of Employment is basically a mechanism to help those who have been justice involved or who have criminal backgrounds earn employment or get employment. So essentially what you would do is you would go before a sentencing judge. You would say, I've been thoroughly rehabilitated, I've been through programming, I haven't been in trouble, X, Y, and Z. If the judge would grant you with a Certificate Qualification of Employment, you would then provide that to an employer, and the employer does not have to take it, but if they did, essentially that collateral sanction is basically it's lifted essentially, and they would be able to hire you. There are also some mechanisms within the Certificate Qualification of Employment that protect the employer, but then also this is why employers need to know about the Certificate Qualification of Employment. They also get a tax incentive. So if they, hire people who have the Certificate Qualification of Employment, they would be able to receive a tax incentive. Now, the Certificate Qualification of Employment is almost literally the same. The only difference is the processes by which you can apply for it. Now, the certificate qualification of employment is a lot more progressive than the CQE. Now, there's still some areas of opportunities, but as was stated, and I have to be honest about it, I work within a Republican-controlled legislature. So there were some things that we were able to get, and there were some things that we had to take. But again, same process. You would go before a judge. You would say, I've been rehabilitated, X, Y, and Z. If the judge gives you the certificate qualification of housing, you would then be able to take that to a property manager, to a landlord, X, Y, and Z. They don't have to take the CQH, but if they do, there is some immunity for them. And it would ultimately help you to receive housing. Now, the difference is there is no tax incentive for the CQH. But that's something that we can think about in the future. But right now, we just kind of were trying to make sure that we got it through, because we realize that it is an issue right now. But in the sense that it is more progressive. So for the CQE, you could apply for a CQE after returning home from incarceration. You would have to return home, do your whatever probationary period it is. Most of you all know I was a former bailiff before I was an elected official, and so that's about 3 to 5 years. A year after that, you can apply for the CQE. The CQH is different because we understand that housing is something that is an immediate need. Now, it's not super immediate, but it's quicker than the CQE. So you would, if you were to come home from incarceration, you would receive that a year after coming home. You don't have to worry about the probationary period, and that's for folks who have felonies. So you will wait a year after you come home. Those who have misdemeanor charges, essentially, is 6 months after you return home. The other beautiful thing about it is that you can get the CQH while you're incarcerated. But check this out. You would have to go and you would have to get a certificate of achievement. You would have to get a certificate. You would get a certificate of employment, and then you would get the CQH. But you have to go through all of the training and all of the programming. And give me 1 second, because I'll follow back up with you. But you would have to go through all of that. But coming home, you could receive it. Now, if you're a person who has been home for a long time, you can apply whatever. You would just need to provide all the information. So it is a wonderful bill, super bipartisan bill, led by myself and Representative Bill Seitz out of Cincinnati. But it's a wonderful bill. Lots of things that we could do to improve it. But for the climate in the legislature that it stands right now, I'm very proud of the work that we were able to accomplish.
That's awesome. And I have a follow-up question. Not sure if you guys know the AC is out in here. I'm going to go ahead and take this jacket off real quick. I'm up here like I'm getting interrogated. like I'm lying about something. And for anybody else that is without hair, you recognize just the purpose of what hair is. It's to catch sweat. You mentioned, Latina, that it is a bipartisan bill. I noticed that. Why do you think it got so much support? Like, is there opportunity to, continue to keep building consensus to get more, as you said?
Yeah, so I think as it relates to criminal justice reform in the Ohio House of Representatives and ultimately the General Assembly, so between the House and the Senate, I think that we have seen historically over the last, maybe 10, 12 years with certain issues that have happened in communities. My colleagues across the aisle have seen or have had family members who have been involved in the criminal justice system and all of the things that surround that. And so now their mind has shifted on how much reform is just really important. And so that's why I believe that we've got support, but we got support from very conservative organizations. So the Buckeye Institute, I think it's Center for Christian Virtue. I mean, just it received a lot of support from places that I didn't necessarily think it would. However, I did believe we would be able to get something done. I did not think it would be even though for some people it's not as progressive as they would like. I didn't think that it would be as progressive as it is, but I did think we would get something passed because the CQE was done in 2011. Fast forward, we're in 2024. If we did it in 11, we can do it in 24. Now, did I expect for us to be working with DRC, and now they've got a program and now or a part and help create the bill in how they want to make sure that folks receive the certificate while incarcerated? No, I didn't realize that it would be as progressive as it is, but I did think it would pass. But I do think the climate and how certain things have affected communities is opened people's eyes, and they realize that criminal justice reform needs to happen. Okay. And reentry is important.
We're going to hold the questions until the end, but don't forget the questions for sure. And, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to move on to either of you, Bo or Makisha. I think you both probably have good answers, whoever wants to start off. But what are some common challenges that individuals face when trying to secure housing after reentry? And if you could provide some context there in terms of, just your current role and, why you have that context to give us.
So my role that I work with Alvis, and Alvis has 3 layers to it, essentially. We have a DD department, we have a corrections department, and we have a behavioral health division as well. Those divisions work together to work with individuals that are coming back into the community from a variety of places and a variety of different circumstances. But what we know is that individuals that are coming back into the community, that they are returning from incarceration, that they face a litany of challenges. Let me step back and say, I had a conversation with an individual today, and he was describing himself to me after being incarcerated for 12 years and returning into the community. During that time frame, when he returned into the community, he received various levels of education, had several levels of achievement, and he described himself as a bologna and cheese sandwich. He said that he feels that he is a bologna and cheese sandwich that individuals only see the bread, that they do not recognize the meat and the cheese that have been added and the effort that it took for him to add that meat and cheese to his makeup. As he is trying to seek employment, as he is trying to maintain housing, as he is trying to achieve the things that we say are achievable within the community. Those are the challenges that individuals face, that perhaps their incarceration was 10 years ago, 12 years ago. It may have been 2 months ago. It may have been 2 days ago. But the cycle continues. So as people come into the community, they are facing every single challenge that each one of us also face. Taxes, high rent, high mortgage, what is available, what can you move into, what is available, what's not, what neighborhood allows you to be there or does not perhaps open the doors to you, right? But on top of that, having a history of being incarcerated. On top of that, the willingness of landlords to give you a chance, no matter what salary you're making, right? So those are some of those challenges. But we also have folks that are coming from incarceration that lack basic needs, that they've been sleeping on the street, that they also do not have an ID, that they need to work on their charges getting exonerated. So we have all of those challenges that we see with the individuals that are coming back into the community. And part of our role is to provide different layers of support. Part of our role is to provide community-based supports that are there. We provide halfway houses. We also provide recovery housing. We also provide various supports within that recovery housing. And we also work to help families and mothers and children and fathers reunite and to come back together again. But those are all challenges that are faced by individuals as they're coming back into the community, right? They've lost loved ones. They've lost their sense of self. They've lost their sense of hope. And on top of that, I don't know where my ID is, I don't know where my birth certificate is, and I don't know where my Social Security is, and I have no one to help me, and I don't have a way to pay for it. Right? So those are the challenges, and those are the supports that we try to help provide people.
So,
Absolutely, absolutely. So Alvis has 3 divisions. The first division is, of course, the corrections division, which most people see Alvis, they automatically know that corrections division. But what we also knew that people needed that were presenting within that corrections division, we recognized that they also had DD services that were needed, developmental disabilities, and those services are also provided. And there are housing services that are specific to those that have some of those cognitive challenges. In addition to that, we also, of course, have the behavioral health division, in which the behavioral health division, of course, we know we have folks coming in the community with mental health diagnosis, drug and alcohol, substance use, all of those needs as well. And that specific division provides those supports in reentry housing. And we also have a new division that's a new arm, which is also our psychiatric division as well.
so we've already heard all of the challenges with affordable housing and housing in general here in Central Ohio. The reality is our population is growing faster than our ability to build housing. So we're all feeling the pressure of those challenges, but it's especially acute for people who have a conviction on their record, or even evictions. And so there's a term, I hate the term, but it's one that I've been hearing, is that we're creating a class of unrentables, people who landlords won't even rent to, and they get discriminated against. So once you, and what's really sad about it is most of these apartment complexes require an application fee. People are submitting these applications. We had one customer who had submitted 10 applications, had spent almost $1,000, only to be denied by everyone. And so the discrimination is real. The barriers are much more significant, as Sean alluded, with the stat earlier, 10 times more likely to be homeless. So it's a major challenge that we have, and so it's going to take some really creative solutions to address it. My organization, Impact Community Action, our mission is to fight poverty by providing hope, inspiring help, and real opportunities for self-sufficiency. We do that through workforce programs, a number of workforce programs, also meeting basic needs like rental assistance, utility assistance. Over the last 4 years, since June of 2020 to present day, we were the recipient of significant federal dollars that came through the state, the city, the county. We were able to help over 50,000 people remain in their homes and distributed almost $120 million in aid to help keep people stable. But those dollars are gone now, and the evictions have actually increased. So we do have a team at eviction court, but the evictions now are basically surpassing pre-pandemic levels. Back when we had this issue even before the pandemic hit in 2019. And so now we've seen it go back to where it was before all the pandemic relief dollars were given. And as you've heard earlier, one of our challenges is that with home rule, the state creates laws and the cities cannot do anything that will be in conflict with state law. So even if the city of Columbus and Cleveland and Cincinnati said, hey, we want to address the issues in our community by creating rent control or by assault weapons ban, it cannot be in conflict with the state law, and therefore they can't even control what's happening in their urban centers locally. To me, that's a travesty because you will hear states always talk about states' rights. Well, what about cities' rights?
What's that? Oh. And I will get to questions here because I think I can tell that people are kind of their brains are going, and so I saw you had your hand up, and I saw you had your hand up. So if you still want to ask those questions.
No,
She did. Come on, brother Bo. I'm the moderator, man. You should stay over there. I had my eyes up. Okay.
I'm Vicki. I'm from Columbus Relief. I'm a volunteer there for over a year and a half. We also deal with the homeless people, and we have a house where we have 5 guys in there. And in my own personal house, I have 5 men who were homeless. And all of what you said, the issues, boy, right on. You got misdemeanors, like felonies, forget it. I got one guy, we went and we got him expunged, and his case dismissed, and so he has a job now, one guy, one man. And I mean, and not having IDs. I work for so many, they don't have IDs. You guys have said you're part of the solution and you're doing things, and I see that, and I understand. Woo! It's not enough. We've got to do more. I mean, to see a homeless person in a camp with gangrene, I've seen it. He lost his fingers, possibly his hand. He's lucky if he didn't. I didn't see him. I just told him to go to the hospital because I knew it was gangrene immediately. These things are real. I had one guy who's gay. He was sleeping around just to have a place. One lover to another, just to have a place. That's basically trafficking yourself, and I'm sure there's women that are doing it. This can't go on. We've got to find a solution. I know all of these men have lived in the what they call abandoned buildings, which the city is cracking down on. So where are they going to go? Where are these people going to live? Where are they going to be? We need a solution, and I don't have a solution for it. I don't, other than Amy, the director of Columbus Relief, says, love the person in front of you. Love that one. And so I try to do that, but oh my goodness, the homeless people up and down Parsons Avenue. I mean, it breaks your heart. And again, all of the men that I know all have misdemeanors, or the one guy, 13 felonies. 13 felonies. Oh my goodness. No, they're not going to get run into. And if they don't get rented, if they don't have homeless at a stable house, how can they get a shower, have IDs kept from being stolen, have clean clothes to go to a job interview, to get a job, to be able to have housing? We've got to come up with a solution as a community. We just got to. And this is great what you're doing, but it's not enough. It's just not.
Oh yeah, that's a great point, and I'll let you guys answer. I just want to add in, as I'm listening to you, again, I'm a civil rights attorney. I think about the fact that we already have housing discrimination that is a reality, even if you are not trying to re-enter society. And so, to your point, it's going to be extremely hard, and we do need to think about innovative, solutions to that. And so, with that, I think we tend to operate within the systems that we're in and how to maximize that. But do you all have any innovative ideas based on the issues that you see that you believe that we can start to put out there and push forward?
Mine is going to be long-winded, so I can let them.
Yeah. We'll start here, and then you'll keep it kind of brief for us, right? Yeah.
Well, one thing I would say is we can't wait for somebody to come save us. The people who are being most impacted, I would love to see us create some kind of cooperative and economic development arm ourselves where we can start to create our own housing. And we've tried this a couple of different times, I will say, and I'm still open to the idea if we get a group who's motivated to do this. But at Impact, we have a skilled trades program where we teach people construction trades, electrical trades, all of those things. We also started to move into the housing space, and so we bought a couple of properties, single-family homes, duplex, and the goal was really to buy these properties to tie in our skilled trades with licensed contractors and instructors who could give them on-the-job training. And it's a good model, but it took someone who could oversee that and understand all the pieces and parts, and working with the skilled labor right now is very difficult to find on projects. I don't know how many people have tried to get a handyman lately, but very difficult to find good skilled labor. And so we did try it with two different contractors, and just did not seem to work out. So for our part, we ended up selling those properties and then focusing on multifamily development. So we are co-developers with Woda Cooper on a project in your district in Whitehall. 102 units will be coming online of affordable housing at 30%, 80%, and 120% AMI. 102 units in Whitehall. It's called the Enclave on Main. It is right next to the U-Haul in Whitehall on Main Street and right down the street from Walmart. So that will be an opportunity in which we will be providing some affordable housing, and certainly we want to make sure that we get people who we serve, the low income, justice involved folks, into some of those units. But I will tell you, we sold the single family house. We had bought it 7 years ago for about $49,000. We put it on the market at $149,000, and we had 14 offers. Our goal was, though, to sell it to a resident who would use it as their primary residence, and we were even willing to sell it at a lower price so that that person could have some equity. We got no offers from individuals, but we had 14 offers from institutional investors. And the highest one was $172,000, which was 23 over asking price. They didn't even look at the home, but they bought it just based on the stock and everything else that they could do with it. We did sell it. We made $120,000, but that's one more housing unit that's off the market for primary residents. And again, our focus is going to be on multifamily development. But if we had a motivated group, because we have skilled trades, we have people who want the on-the-job training. If I had a skilled contractor out there who wanted to do some on-the-job training, and we could look at, purchasing some homes and making that model work, I would be open to it. But I think that's one creative way in which people who are directly impacted, and we had a couple guys who came through our program and said, you know what, we're not going the union route or whatever. We're going to focus on getting the skills we need to be able to do our own thing. And it was about 2 or 3 of them. They formed their own LLC, and so now they're starting to buy houses and renovate them and work together. So I would love to see an expansion of that kind of model, the duplexes, the fourplexes.
Makisha?
I would say some of the solutions that we look at, again, looking at different forms of housing, right? Looking at the different levels of having our own continuum of housing somewhat built in. Because you have that challenge where you have individuals that are coming back into the community that they're not ready necessarily to step into certain spaces yet. They still need support, right? So having a space so that individuals can gain that support and continue to move forward, in which they're not sleeping outside, in which they're not sleeping from bed to bed, right? So trying to build that, but that also, you need funding for that, right? You need spaces to utilize for that. You either own that space or you lease that space. And if you're attempting to lease a space or own a space, you have the overhead that goes along with that space, right? So looking at those things, planning for those things, having dollars that are there to support those things that you're going to face, right? But I also think the next step for that individual, after they have supports that are there, built in, case management services to assist with a variety of different things, right? What happens next, right? So then you have to have someplace that an individual can rent that's more permanent, that is for a longer length of time. Those days of being able to have individuals in a supportive housing space for 5 years or so, that it's not the same, right? The dollars won't support that person being there for that period of time. So exactly, we look at transitional housing units, we look at a variety of different units. So for us, we look at the individuals that have children And what about those mothers and those fathers that are trying to reconnect with their children? What happens when they come out as an individual and they have a space in which to live in? And then what happens next is they do regain that custody. How do we make sure that there's an apartment that's there for them? How do we make sure that there's an apartment that's not just a 1 or a 2 bedroom apartment, but most families actually need a 3 bedroom apartment. And that's very scarce and very difficult to find. So part of the things that we're looking at, also building and looking at properties that, in partnerships that can support that building, right? So one of the things that we are doing is looking at a partnership with Connect, in which we're going to have particular homes that will be built. 52 apartments will be built for women and children, and they will be near the Schottenstein warehouse. And so we are partnering in that way. So that provides some additional housing that is there. But also, folks have to have the time to get there. Right? They have to not be evicted before they get there. They have to not be on the street before they get there. So we also offer other levels of housing. That's that entry level of housing that ORH, Ohio Recovery Housing, would call that a level 1 house, a level 2 house, or a level 3 house, in which level 2 you have some staffing, level 3 you have 24-hour staffing and support. For that level 3 with 24-hour support, those are those folks that are maybe just coming into the community. They need that support. We're able to give that to them. We're able to provide that to them. And then also having those level 2s also available. But that goes back to our conversations about zoning. That goes back to our conversations about how welcoming that is within the communities. Right? Are we looking at single family homes that we are converting into recovery homes? Are we looking at apartments that we are converting into recovery housing? What does that mean? And what does that mean when you begin to also have the different credentials that are needed, such as CARF, OMOS, and things like that individuals are trying to work with and to learn how to work with, right, in this atmosphere and in this space of need that we have for individuals. So it's amazing that we continue to discuss zoning, which is very much needed. It's amazing that we continue to discuss how do we open up more spaces and opportunities for affordable housing, very needed. But we do need to also ask the questions of what's needed for those supports to continue those efforts.
Can I just say one thing on Connect Housing, because that is a very innovative employer, private sector employer, Brad DeHaze and Connect Housing, with what they're doing. They're building prefabricated in a factory, prefab homes. And typically you've seen them as single family houses, but they figured out a way to do it as multi-family housing. And so the costs are much lower. Then with the people that they're employing, one of the things that we talked about is the benefits cliff. You know, one of the things is if you make a certain amount of money, then you lose benefits and your standard of living can actually go down. And so there's a disincentive. And so we talked to them about that. And so what they created was kind of a digital badging process where you learn certain skills on one part of it, and then you get another badge as you go through, and every time you're getting a salary increase. But what they did is he said, okay, well, let's figure out what's the point in which you will lose benefits. And instead of us paying that person and they lose the benefits, what we're going to do is put it in a holding account. So you keep your benefits and you're still earning this money, and it's going into an account where you're earning interest. And so that once you build up that nest egg to the point where the benefits cliff won't impact you, and you're at a place where you can be stable, then you would realize those dollars and then move forward. I just thought that was a very innovative way from a private employer who's willing to be creative in how we solve these issues. And then let me give a shout out to a couple of my staff members, Dr. Lewis Dodley, who runs our Reentry program, and then Keith Queener, who is our Director of Outreach and Engagement. Thank you.
So 2 things, and I'll be quick because I know we're about to wrap up, but there are 2 things that I feel like we can do as a state legislature to kind of address the issues. And so what I will tell you, and this kind of ties into your point about bipartisanship, but check this out. What I'm about to say isn't even bipartisan, but it's really good. So there's a bill called House Bill 460. And so when we want to talk about reentry and talk about how folks who have criminal backgrounds get jobs and housing and all of that, sometimes we won't even, it won't even entail the word words housing, but sometimes it will address the issue by what we can do. So in House Bill 460, what it will do is it will automatically expunge or seal certain records. And this is a Republican-led bill led by Representative Brett Hillier, and then the joint sponsor on my bill, House Bill 50, Representative Bill Seitz out of Cincinnati. And this bill was curated and created by something that they saw happen in Michigan in working with Chase Bank. And so essentially what it would do is every month BCI would send a report over to essentially the prosecutors and the courts and all of that to say these are records that should be automatically sealed. And we all know that those records are probably your nonviolent offenses and things like that. But yeah, so that's one of the things that we can do. But that bill won't pass unless we call and ask for it to be supported, lest we reach out to other members and ask them to support the bill and all of that. You mentioned like what can we do? The reality is it does tie all the way back and always back to voting. Now this is a good bill. This is a Republican-led bill, but the reality is still you're going to have people who may be on the fence about something so progressive. Case in point, as I think you may know, the prosecutors are against this bill because what they say is it's heavy on their workload. But the reality is we don't even understand how many more people would be in the workforce, how many more people would have housing, all of that. This is why this bill was created. It was created because, and especially in Michigan, Chase wanted more people to work in their call centers, but they couldn't hire them because of their backgrounds. So they got creative. Kind of case in point, what you were saying was to say, listen, we need to do something legislatively because I want to hire more people, and I want to hire people who actually want to go to work. And we can do the same thing in Ohio, but if we do not support this bill, if we do not call the chairwoman, if we do not call the vice chair and the ranking members and all of that, this bill doesn't move. Now it has a strong likelihood, but we only got 6 more months left in the General Assembly. Bill Seitz, the joint sponsor on the bill, is a bad brother. I'm telling you, he's one of my mentors, Republican or not. But the reality is we only got 6 months, but we can move this bill if people call and ask for hearings and ask for it to be voted out and all of that, because he has capability to move it because he is one of the strongest Republicans, but he's going to need support to be able to do that. So that's one way. The other way that I think that we can address this, and it ties into everything that you all have said, but we need to focus on housing for those who have been justice involved. Now, Representative, how do you do that? You do that by tax credits that empower affordable housing for those who have been justice involved. Case in point, we heard a lot about the low-income housing tax credit in the other room. The reality is, and this wasn't mentioned, but the House put in the budget to support $31 million in the budget for low-income housing tax credit to support WODA. I know because they pushed me to push the money to push it through. So we have the capability to do it. How we create more of it is we say $31 million was great, but how about $50 million the next time? But we need people like you all to support that. The other thing is the reason why there is a shortage for affordable housing for those who have been justice involved is because it's very competitive. And so we're going to have to, one, advocate in the state legislature for more funding, because we just did it in the last budget with my own 2 eyes. I've seen it. We did it. So we can advocate on the state side, but then we also got to advocate from our federal, congressional and senatorial people and all of that to make sure that there's more money coming down to your LIHTCs and all of that. So there are multiple ways, but those are some of the ways. One that doesn't even mention housing, but it mentions sealing records so people can get housing and get jobs and all of that. And then the other is we need to advocate for more money, especially during the budget. We want to hear from you all. I'm good about going to my area commissions and going in the community and hearing what people have got to say, and I'm gonna get to you, sis. But we all have to be a part of the process. So those are two ways, but there are much more ways. Just like the CQH, we've got to advocate. That 1 year is great, but we all know there's a greater likelihood for somebody to recidivize 6 months to 12 months in. And once we get to 12 months, when we can offer the CQH, God knows what could have happened. You know, so that's the reality.
You know, and I love those answers, especially you, Latina, there at the end, because you're talking about systemic change there. And I think that's really what people need to understand. And I'll get to you and we'll kind of go through some questions. No, I'm here. Boom, 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 boom. All right, we'll see. Yep, speed round. But, you know, what happens, I think, you know, for like, you know, private developers, private attorneys is that, you know, we then are looking at, you know, having expungement clinics and these things that should be happening through the government and through a system that can be much more organized, and having that systemic change will bring about change faster, I believe. So I'm going to walk around a little bit here, get some questions, and we're going to try to speed through. We don't have much time left. We want to touch on a few different topics while we're here. We got a lot of questions. I won't be responsible for these questions not getting asked. So start with you here.
Okay. First of all, my name is Andrea Henderson. I am a formerly incarcerated individual. I did go through the Alvis House. Thank you very much for the Alvis House. I did work with Impact a little bit in my coming out of incarceration. I worked with Clean Turn, which I'm sure everyone here, most people here are familiar with. I was the director there. After coming home from incarceration, after about a month, I was promoted to the director of operations. So this is hits me hard. It really does. And I do want to thank or Representative Humphrey. I know we going there. Representative Humphrey, I'd like to thank you for your work and also the work of everyone that worked with you on that bill. However, I really feel like we missed a lot with that bill. I think we missed something so basic and so simple that it's kind of hard to believe that we're actually almost proud of what we did or what was done with House Bill 50. And I say that because, first of all, it's right here. Housing is a human right. It is a human right, okay? And when we deny someone a basic human right, after returning them to society, after paying their debt to the society, what are we doing as humans? What are we, like this gentleman said, what are we doing as humans? What are we doing as landlords? What are we doing as property owners? What are we doing? We're violating and doing the most illogical thing that's also a violation of our basic human rights. Okay, everyone needs a place to stay. So with House Bill 50, the things that I feel about it is it's not practical, it's not logical, and it's not humane. The first thing is a 1 year wait. You have a 1 year wait in order to be able to even get this certificate. What is going to happen in 1 year? What's going to happen in 1 year? Okay, the second part of that is the landlord does not have to take it. You don't have to take this. You can go down and pay your $40 like the gentleman he talked about that paid $1,000 and different things, and you can get this thing and they don't have to take it. What are we proud of here? What are we proud of with this bill? Okay, the second thing is the cost. There's a cost associated. You have to pay $40 or $50, I think it is, in order to be able to even get this certificate, to apply for this certificate. I have to go back to the same person that prosecuted me, that sent me to prison, and say, hey, you sent me to prison to be rehabilitated. Can you please give me this piece of paper to show these people I've been rehabilitated, that I can pay my rent on time, that I will be a good tenant? You know, you don't know that when you rent to anyone. That's why there's so many evictions. We don't know that when we rent to families that make $100,000 a year and they end up getting evicted. We don't know that. Having a felony should not be a guideline of whether or not you should have a basic human right. Now, what would the discussion be if we said, let's have people come home and wait a year to be able to get groceries? Let's make them wait a year to be able to have clothing. We'd be having a different conversation. It just is not logical. It does not do in my opinion, and I thank you because I'm happy that the conversation is even there. Okay, that it's being had. That brings me great joy that someone actually realizes there is a problem. My issue is that where were the incarcerated people when the bill was being designed? Who did you ask? There's no one that's coming from incarceration that would say, oh yeah, this is greatly going to benefit me. It's just not going to happen. So I get that, everybody wants to make these efforts, and then we're talking about these tax incentives and all these things. Incentivizing who? When I came home, I did 2.5 years in Marysville. I went to Alvis House for 6 months. In a week, I had a job. Okay, I started earning money. I actually was earning more money than they were paying their staff. Okay? I was making my money. I'm turning in my checks every week. They're taking their percentage. And when I left out of Alvis House, I left with a check of over $2,500, which I immediately, this was 10 years ago, 13 years ago, immediately went and purchased a vehicle that day. The next 10 days, they make you wait. You get a check. I got the other half of my money. I started looking for housing. I could not get housing. I identify with this woman who says this man slept from house. I had plenty of relationships that I did not want to have because I needed a roof over my shoulder. My mother passed. I didn't have family to stay with. And I had a job making $50,000 a year. I could not get a place. I went after that, I went through the carpenter apprenticeship. I'm now a local 200 member carpenter. If anyone needs a handyman, handy person, I'm here. And became a carpenter. I'm now a journeyman carpenter. I mentor other carpenters, and I always advocate for people coming out of incarceration to get into a trade. Okay, and now I'm making more than that. I still cannot get housing. It's really an insult to me to say, okay, well, we'll do these low income. I don't have low income. I'm not low income. I support myself. I don't want anyone to support me. I want you to let me pay my rent. That's what I want. Okay, and so when that can't be done, again, we have major human rights violations. It's really that simple. It's that simple. And so it infuriates me because it's, like I said, dear to my heart. I'm actually going through it. I'm still living through that today. Today, right now, I can apply for an apartment and get turned down. I live in an extended stay hotel right now. That's where I live. Okay? So, I mean, I understand the competition. I understand this. You put a lot of effort into training people to get jobs, to get high-paying jobs. There's programs coming out of Marysville where you can go straight into a city job making $25 an hour. Who needs low income? We need to let these people let us pay our rent. That's all we need. We need legislation that says you cannot ask someone about their background. Now, I get someone can still get on the computer and they can look you up and find out whatever, but it needs to be said to landlords, you cannot base whether or not you will rent to someone based on their background. That's it. That's the legislation we need, period.
Thank you for that, opening up like that. If you could respond briefly.
So, first of all, I want to say thank you because I remember you from coming to the press conference. What I want you to know is I understand that it is not the end all be all. I'm a daughter of a returning citizen. My mom's got 7 prison numbers. And so I know exactly what it looks like to not know where you're going to go. This is why this is an effort of mine. But one of the things I need you all to understand and also help us on the fight is that there are 32 Democrats and 67 Republicans who do not necessarily believe in a reentry or believe in a criminal justice reform to an extent. To an extent. You got to understand the makeup. That's what you also have to understand that there were a lot of things that were put in the bill that I didn't necessarily agree with in order to get the bill across the finish line. You have to understand this. So what I will say, because I feel you. I swear I feel you. I feel you. My mom's, I'm not even going to tell her business, but I'm going to say I get it. But what I just need people to understand is that it is a fight in the State House. And so when you ask that we talk to people who have been justice involved, absolutely. You're Wendy Tarr. We talk to other people who have been incarcerated. People come to me all across the state about this bill. This bill ain't the best it could be, but I am proud because if I hadn't said it, it wouldn't have been done. And so I'm appreciative of it, and I'm not looking for applause, but what I'm looking for is people who are willing to continuously show up for this fight. You got to show up because it is they believe in it to an extent. But if you look at the board, it has strong bipartisan support, but you still have people voting no. through and through and didn't care. Nothing that I said, nothing that my colleagues said, or any of that. So it's not the best it could be, but I need people to understand what happens at the state legislature, because they block everything. We get jumped every day. So it's a wonder that this bill even made it anywhere and even made it to the governor's desk. And so I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I just say to everyone in this room, not just to my dear friend over here, like, show up for us during these sessions and these hearings and committee. Show up, provide testimony. And I like emails. Emails are cute to committee members, but show up, say what you got to say, and keep doubling down on these members, because if we don't do that, I don't know. And even the part about me understanding that there is this gap, a 12-month gap. You understand? Like, I get it. But even if I wanted to change it, like, I don't even see that happening in the next General Assembly, just because of the infighting that is going on, not between Republicans and Democrats, but between Republicans and Republicans. You understand? We chose our speaker because they was fighting. That ain't normal. You know what I'm saying? So, like, we really just gotta go, like, we gotta do this together. And so I hear you, I respect everything you're saying, and I get where you're coming from. I swear to God I do. But it's what we could do. And I'm not gonna stop fighting. This is a life mission of mine. But, like, the Republicans control stuff. And if we don't get out and vote and go to rural areas and tell them to vote and stop voting against their interests, we're not going to see much change anyway. And if we, you know what, I'm gonna stop there. But yes.
No, that's real on both fronts. I mean, I'm sitting here learning so much, but I'm not going to talk too much. Got a question here,
Yes.
and then a question here, and then there. Right?
Okay.
If we can get to them all.
7:55. I'm so sorry. Y'all.
We got 8 minutes.
Okay, I'll make it quick. I'm the program manager for Opportunity Port. We provide free record sealing and expungement assistance to anyone who signs up through the website, opportunityport.org. I work at a policy center at OSU Moritz College of Law. We've done an analysis of the CQH program. We're familiar with with CQE, like intimately familiar with both of these record certificates. Relief certificates are really important. We also understand that there are ways to improve them, for sure. Same with the with House Bill 460. Like, I'm going to send you an email with our analysis, and if you'd rather have just like a conversation about it offline, that'd be great. We'd love to tell you where we think improvements can be made. But I wanted to add on, in addition to, there's an idea that BCI is the background checker for everyone for all things, and that's not the case. Obviously, I think we know that, but we don't understand it. So 460 is going to take care of official records, court records, BCI records, etc. However, current sealing and expungement orders are sent up to BCI, right? But when you're applying for housing, when you're applying for a job, they're using a private background check company. Now, I know that there was a pilot project a few years ago where they were like, okay, you can apply to the court, and the court's going to work with this one shady law associate up in Michigan who's going to like send your sealing and expungement orders out to all of these different private background check companies in order to make sure it's actually off of the record. The record being not the court's record, but like First Advantage check, or like check my background, or, you know, like don't hire a criminal. Yeah, there is a question. My question is, what are you going to do to bring back that pilot or improve upon it so that there is assistance for individuals with sealing and expungement orders, or assistance with individuals who want to dispute any background check that comes back? Because once you ring a bell, you can't unring it. And I think that's where a lot of people are going to lose faith in the criminal justice system, lose faith in certificates of relief if they do go through the process. Some courts are charging $250 a case. Now, we are watchdogging those courts and letting them know, hey, this is not law for you to do that. I want you to consider it, and you don't have to answer, because I know there's probably nothing in the works right now for that specific issue.
I would just say reach out to Hilliard and Sykes, because that's their bill. I'm a co-sponsor, but that's their bill. Reach out to them and see what they say.
Okay.
If you have a question there.
Hi, my name is Angela Barnes. I have multiple hats. I am on the school board. I serve on one of the City of Columbus commissions. I'm a foster parent, but I did want to ask a couple questions. First question, I don't know if it's really a question or not, but it would be something if they could just remove or make it illegal for a fee to be charged for applications. Like if you want to if a person walks in and they need to apply for it, great. But most of the things that they find out with, because I've been a landlord, I've rented plenty of times, I can find out almost anything for free. So I don't know why there's a fee for paying for applications. I think that's something the city should be able to outlaw. And I thought IDs were free now because of voting. And the one big thing that I did want to make a suggestion on is how can we teach people to build wealth rather than be renters? If we could teach them to take the money that they're using to rent to buy, then there's a lot of things you can't discriminate against with somebody who is looking to buy something, so as opposed to rent. Building wealth, having an insurance policy for life insurance, having a savings account, having a checking account, understanding how the choices that they make improve or decline their credit ratings. If we could teach people to have wealth and build their wealth as opposed to being consumers, then I think we could help some people not be homeless or have more options instead of being homeless.
Anybody want to give any just quick feedback on
Just
that?
really quickly, the thing that I would mention with that in terms of building wealth, and it was kind of mentioned with the loss of benefits and things like that, taking into consideration sometimes that regardless of what level of income a person may have, there's going to be new levels of barriers that sometimes come up that they have to transition and be ready for as well. As was stated in the back of the room, you can make a certain amount of dollars, but does that necessarily open the door? I think one of the things, though, as a service provider, I think it's also, and not just as a service provider, but everyone in the room, being aware of what services are out there, so supports can be given to folks so they can navigate that. So for some of us in the room, we may not know how to navigate that all the time. So for other folks that are coming from incarceration, they may or may not have had that opportunity to learn some of those resources that are there. So I think with that comes that education, the navigation, and just the variety of the connection and linkage to supports that exist within the community, and creating those supports before people come into the community again from being incarcerated.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick. Yep.
There is a program that I think works really well for foster kids, because I did say I was a foster parent, and the transition between foster kids leaving a foster home and going into on their own is really traumatic for the foster child. But there are 2 buildings right now being built. One of them already exists on Chatterton that only houses foster kids. And when they asked to build it, it was a big to-do in the community. Nobody wanted to have it. We have had no issues with them. They've been quiet. The kids come and go. They do what they're supposed to do. They go to work. They love living there, and it's managed, and there are people there 24 hours a day. And now they're building a second building. That, if anybody can look at that model, would be a great model, I think, for people leaving the prison system, on a place to be able to stay and have a model like that where you can stay that has someone managing it, but you're paying rent and it's yours.
Yeah. While you're transitioning to him, I'm going to answer a part of your question. There are programs out there, like through Homeport and through Columbus Urban League, where new low-income homeowners and things like that, where you can go through. I know, because I know multiple people who have been justice involved who have gone through those programs and now are homeowners. Case in point, I told you my mom's got 7 prison numbers, but she owns 2 properties. So it is possible, just got to be willing to go through the process. So Columbus Urban League, Homeport, they do offer those programs.
This has been a really powerful conversation. Obviously not enough time by any means, but I can say that I've not only learned, but I'm inspired to do more within this space. And if you guys look on the screen there's a QR code. Please use that QR code to continue to do this work within the Housing for All just initiative. So thank you all for coming out, and let's stay inspired and let's stay encouraged.